Let's bring in two of our other well-sourced reporters, Phil Rucker, national editor for The Washington Post, and Punchbowl News co-founder Jake Sherman. Gentlemen, really good to have you. Phil, I know you know these events well. Jake was mentioning, or Garrett was mentioning, that there's more unity here than we've seen in conventions past. I was at the convention for Donald Trump in 2016, and I spoke to a lot of people there who were still very nervous about him. Here, that is not the case. The party clearly inside this room is unified. The question is, how far does what's happening inside this room reach out into America, and does it convince people who have been wary of Donald Trump that there might be a reason to give him a second look?
Yeah, well, a couple things, Katie. First of all, you're right that there's so much unity in that convention hall, but keep in mind the Republicans, the prominent Republicans who are not there. You don't see Mike Pence there. You don't see Mitt Romney. You don't see Liz Cheney. So there still is a part of the Republican Party that is quite hostile to a Trump candidacy and is not supporting his bid for election this fall. But the key for Trump is going to be to have a message tonight that can reach out not only to those never-Trumper Republicans, but to other independent voters, to really try to make the inroads that he's been building towards with black men in particular, with other, parts of what has been the Biden and before that Obama Democratic coalition. And, his campaign has signaled he would do that with a message of unity, with a different kind of tone. But, we've been around long enough to know that there have been a lot of previewed pivots from Donald Trump, and he's not always made those successfully. He tends to revert back to his more hard-edged core message. So we'll see what the speech is tonight, but certainly the campaign's political imperative will be to try to broaden his base of support with this moment.
This has been a campaign of retribution. Donald Trump has said so. There's also a lot of retribution and vengeance on the stage, talking about, they did this to my father. They have always been trying to go out and get Donald Trump. He's always been victimized. They're trying to take him down. A shooter tried to take him down, and look at him. He's still standing. Policy-wise, are we seeing any change in policy coming out of this convention? Yesterday, there were people holding signs with mass deportation now.
No, well, two things. Let me address both points. Number one, the core of the Trump message is that the world is against him, right? So the shooting is just one more thing to add on to that list of things that are skewed against him. No, we've not seen anything different policy-wise. I will say this, though. The posters on the floor that said Trump will end the Ukraine war is a sharp departure, not only from the Biden administration, but from the vast majority, maybe not vast majority, but the majority of Republicans on Capitol Hill. That is not something that a lot of Republicans are going to be comfortable with if Donald Trump were to win. And think about the mass deportation thing. We were talking about this last night, Katie. What does that look like if you're deporting millions of people from the United States? I don't think people are focusing in on the specifics. I don't think the administration or the potential administration here is focusing in on just what that would look like, what it would look like to deport millions of people from the U.S.
Well, Phil, I will note that on stage with Donald Trump yesterday during the walkthrough was Stephen Miller.
Yeah, his longtime former speechwriter, a policy advisor, and a real hardliner when it comes to immigration policies in particular. He's been a real advocate of some of the most stringent anti-immigration policies and proposals within the Republican Party. And to Jake's point, the idea of mass deportation is really going to cause some concern, certainly to those independent voters generally in the country, but even to some Republicans and Republican elected officials.
A lot of families are mixed households right now, mixed status households. And what do you do about dreamers, kids who are brought here and only know this country? We've had this conversation before. I feel like I'm just reverting back to 2016, 2017, 2018. I want to ask about the Democrats, since that news seems to be breaking. What are you hearing about the reaction on Capitol Hill? I spoke to a Democratic lawmaker just a moment ago who told me that there are others that do want to come out and say that the president needs to step aside.
My phone is filled right now with both reporting internally at Punchbowl News. We're preparing for a midday edition, which should come out soon, and messages from lawmakers who are saying that they are effectively resigned to the fact that Joe Biden, is not going to be running. The Washington Post just broke a groundbreaking story that said that President Obama is telling Biden to really reconsider or take a look at his polling and reconsider whether he's a viable candidate. I could just tell you that, again, I said this to you like a week ago. I'll say it again in an updated way. Last week I told you I don't think there's any Democrats who want him to continue. Now I haven't really found any Democrats who think he will continue. I mean, no one is telling me they think he'll continue. I had one person just tell me, I won't pull it up now, but they're in wait-and-see mode. They're resigned to the fact the dam is breaking. It will continue to break next week. Remember, House and Senate back next week.
And they've been at home with their constituents,
correct,
listening to their voters.
And quite frankly, soaking in, some missteps that Biden has had over the last couple of days where he looks better than he did in the debate, but you're not seeing the kind of stepped up activity that they've.
It's also just so very unlucky that he contracted
COVID. Yes.
Phil, what about you?
I think that's exactly right. And the other thing that Democratic leaders are doing is they're watching this Republican convention on TV. And this is a projection of strength and unity from the Republican ticket and from Donald Trump in the aftermath of that shooting. And that's a very intimidating thing politically, I think, for the Biden team to have to grapple with. He's already down in the polls, and you've just got to wonder what those polls are going to look like after voters have taken in this week of pageantry and speeches at the convention.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.